Why would one of the most recognizable consumer brands in the world spend millions of dollars on advertisements that barely talk about its product? Think about the last memorable Coca-Cola commercial you saw. There is a good chance you remember families gathering around a dinner table, friends celebrating together, strangers sharing a smile, or fans watching a football match. You probably remember the feeling, but you might struggle to recall anyone explaining the taste, the ingredients, or even why the drink itself is better than the competition. That seems strange. After all, conventional marketing wisdom suggests that advertising should convince people by highlighting what makes a product superior. If you have a better product, explain why it is better. If you have a unique feature, show it. If your quality is higher, prove it. Yet Coca-Cola appears to play by a completely different set of rules. Instead of selling a soft drink, it repeatedly sells moments. It sells celebrations. It sells friendship. It sells togetherness. Across decades, its global campaigns have carried names such as Open Happiness, Taste the Feeling, and more recently, Real Magic. Although the creative execution changes, the emotional direction remains remarkably consistent. According to official announcements from the Coca-Cola Company, these campaigns were designed to connect the brand with everyday experiences rather than simply describe the beverage itself. That raises an uncomfortable question. If people already know what Coca-Cola tastes like, why continue spending billions of dollars telling stories about emotions instead of simply reminding consumers that the drink exists? This question becomes even more interesting when we consider the scale of the company itself. Coca-Cola products are sold in more than 200 countries and territories through one of the largest beverage distribution systems in the world. The company operates in a category where consumers often make purchase decisions within seconds. In a supermarket, a convenience store, or a vending machine, there is rarely enough time for someone to carefully compare nutritional information or study product specifications. The choice often feels almost automatic. So perhaps the real competition is not happening only on the supermarket shelf. Perhaps it begins much earlier. Perhaps the most important battle takes place long before a customer reaches for a bottle. There is another detail that makes this story even more intriguing. In 2016, Coca-Cola introduced the global Taste the Feeling campaign. On the surface, it looked like the company was bringing the product back into the spotlight. The advertisements showed people actually drinking Coca-Cola more frequently than some previous campaigns. But even then, the drink was rarely presented in isolation. It remained part of shared meals, personal moments, celebrations, and everyday life. The product appeared, but always inside a larger human story. That is why this video is not really about advertising. It is about understanding why one of the world's strongest brands continues investing in emotional messages when it could simply promote the drink itself. Because if Coca-Cola has spent decades making this choice across different countries' generations and campaigns, there is probably a business reason that goes far beyond creating commercials people enjoy watching. To understand why this approach has remained remarkably consistent, we first need to look at the kind of business Coca-Cola actually operates. On paper, Coca-Cola sells beverages. In reality, it competes in one of the most mature consumer markets in the world. Carbonated soft drinks are not complex technologies. They are products that consumers already understand. Most people do not stand in front of a refrigerator comparing ingredients, reading technical specifications, or carefully evaluating manufacturing processes. They often make a choice within seconds. That creates a very different marketing challenge from industries such as automobiles, smartphones, or enterprise software, where buyers actively search for detailed product information before making a decision. In Coca-Cola's category, many functional differences are either already familiar or difficult for consumers to evaluate during everyday purchases. This is also a business built on extraordinary scale. According to the Coca-Cola Company's annual reports, its portfolio includes hundreds of beverage brands sold through a global network of bottling partners and distributors that reaches more than 200 countries and territories. The company's success depends not only on producing beverages, but also on making those beverages available almost everywhere consumers might want them. Availability, however, is only one part of the equation. Being physically present in millions of stores does not automatically mean a customer will choose your product. That is especially true in a category filled with alternatives. Consumers can choose Pepsi. They can choose local soft drinks. They can buy bottled water, juice, sports drinks, ready-to-drink coffee, energy drinks, or simply decide not to buy anything at all. Every purchase becomes a competition for a single decision. This explains why Coca-Cola has rarely treated advertising as a simple exercise in explaining what the drink contains. Instead, the company has repeatedly invested in creating campaigns that can travel across cultures without depending on detailed product demonstrations. Consider the evolution of its global brand platforms. Open Happiness invited consumers to associate Coca-Cola with small moments of joy in everyday life. Years later, Taste the Feeling placed the product more visibly at the center of the campaign, but the drink still appeared alongside everyday experiences such as sharing meals, celebrating achievements, relaxing after work, or spending time with loved ones. In announcing the campaign, the Coca-Cola Company described it as a unified global marketing approach designed to celebrate both the product and the emotions surrounding the act of drinking it. The same pattern continued with Real Magic, which focused on human connection and shared experiences in both physical and digital communities. The wording changed. The visual style changed. The cultural references evolved. But one characteristic remained surprisingly stable. The advertisements consistently treated Coca-Cola as something that belonged inside meaningful moments rather than something that needed lengthy explanations. This consistency becomes even more interesting when viewed over decades. Advertising campaigns often change because consumer preferences change. Marketing teams change. Agencies change. Competitive environments change. Yet Coca-Cola has continued returning to remarkably similar themes despite operating in different markets, serving different generations, and adapting to entirely new media platforms. That suggests these campaigns are not isolated creative ideas. They are expressions of a much broader commercial strategy. The important question, then, is no longer why Coca-Cola produces emotional advertisements. The more revealing question is why repeatedly connecting the brand with celebrations, friendships, family gatherings, sporting events, and everyday rituals has remained valuable enough to justify decades of sustained investment across one of the largest marketing organizations in the world. The turning point appears when we stop looking at Coca-Cola's campaigns as individual advertisements and begin looking at them as parts of a single system. A clear example is the Share a Coke campaign. At first glance, the idea looked almost trivial. Instead of printing the Coca-Cola logo on every bottle, the company replaced it with popular first names. Nothing about the beverage changed. The recipe remained exactly the same. The packaging still looked unmistakably like Coca-Cola. Yet one small design decision completely changed how people interacted with the product. Instead of simply buying a drink, consumers began searching for their own names, looking for friends' names, giving bottles as gifts, posting photographs on social media, and turning an everyday purchase into a personal experience. The beverage had not changed. The meaning attached to buying it had. The results demonstrated how powerful that shift could become. According to the Coca-Cola Company, during the campaign's initial launch in Australia, more than 250 million personalized bottles and cans were sold in a country with fewer than 23 million people at the time. What began as a local experiment later expanded across dozens of markets. When Coca-Cola relaunched the campaign globally in 2025, the company rolled it out across more than 120 countries with approximately 10 billion personalized packages and over 30,000 localized names. That scale tells us something important. This was never simply a creative advertising campaign. It became an operating model that could be adapted across cultures while preserving the same underlying principle. The same pattern appears in other global campaigns. Open Happiness encouraged people to associate Coca-Cola with simple moments worth sharing. Taste the Feeling returned the product to the center of the screen, but consistently placed it inside ordinary human experiences instead of presenting it as a technical product. Demonstration. Real Magic continued linking the brand to connection, participation, and shared moments across both physical and digital communities. Viewed separately, these campaigns seem very different. Viewed together, they reveal remarkable consistency. Each campaign introduces different characters, different stories, different visual styles, and different cultural references. But each campaign repeatedly reinforces the relationship between Coca-Cola and situations that people experience throughout everyday life. This consistency extends far beyond television commercials. The company's sponsorship of global sporting events, seasonal holiday campaigns, music partnerships, retail displays, packaging design, and digital marketing all reinforce similar associations rather than introducing entirely different messages. Instead of asking consumers to learn something new every few years, Coca-Cola continuously strengthens familiar connections through multiple points of contact. This matters because every interaction becomes another opportunity to reinforce the same set of associations. The advertisement reminds people of the brand. The package looks exactly like the advertisement. The store display repeats the same visual identity. The sporting event displays the same colors. The holiday campaign echoes the same emotional themes. None of these elements creates value in isolation. Together, they form a coordinated system in which each encounter supports the next. At this stage, another pattern begins to emerge. The company's most valuable marketing investments are often not focused on communicating new information about the beverage itself. Instead, they appear designed to increase the number of situations in which Coca-Cola feels naturally connected to everyday life. That observation raises an important question. If the real objective is not simply to tell consumers what Coca-Cola is, then what exactly is the company trying to build every time it creates another campaign about friendship, celebration, family, or happiness? The answer begins with a simple but important observation. People do not buy every product by following the same mental process. When someone purchases a house or chooses an investment fund, they usually spend time comparing detailed information. They actively search for evidence before making a decision. Buying a soft drink is different. Most purchases happen quickly, often with very little conscious analysis. The customer already knows what Coca-Cola is. The challenge is not introducing the product. The challenge is making Coca-Cola the brand that naturally comes to mind when the buying moment arrives. This is where the role of emotion becomes much more practical than it first appears. Many people assume emotional advertising exists mainly to make consumers like a brand. But that explanation is incomplete. The more important function is helping the brand become mentally connected to situations that occur repeatedly in everyday life. Marketing science offers a useful way to understand this. Researchers at the Ehrenberg-based Institute have shown that brands grow by increasing their mental availability, meaning the likelihood that consumers will think of the brand in buying situations. One important mechanism involves building links between a brand and what the Institute describes as category entry points. These are the cues, occasions, motivations, in contexts that trigger a purchase decision. In other words, people often do not begin with a brand. They begin with a situation. I am having lunch. I am meeting friends. I am watching football. I am celebrating. I want something refreshing. The brand that is easiest to recall within those situations gains an important competitive advantage before any comparison on the shelf even begins. Now Coca-Cola's advertising starts to look very different. The company is not repeatedly showing happiness because happiness itself is the product. Instead, it is attaching the Coca-Cola brand to situations that consumers encounter again and again throughout their lives. Every family dinner, every birthday, every holiday gathering, every sporting event, every shared meal, every celebration. The emotional story becomes valuable because it creates another pathway that can lead consumers back to the same brand. This also explains why Coca-Cola invests so heavily in assets that remain remarkably consistent over time. The red color, the Spencerian script logo, the contour bottle, the distinctive package design, the familiar holiday imagery. According to research from the Ehrenberg-based Institute, these distinctive brand assets help consumers recognize and retrieve brands more easily across different buying situations. Their value increases through consistent repetition rather than constant reinvention. Seen together, the campaigns discussed earlier are no longer isolated creative successes. They become reinforcing layers of the same system. The advertisements create associations. The packaging reminds consumers of those associations. Retail displays repeat them. Global sponsorships strengthen them. Every additional encounter makes the network of associations slightly stronger. This also changes how we should interpret the emotional message itself. The feeling is not replacing information. It is expanding relevance. A product description can explain what Coca-Cola tastes like. An emotional association can connect Coca-Cola to countless future moments where someone might consider buying a drink. Those two functions are fundamentally different. One communicates product knowledge. The other increases the probability that the brand will be remembered at the moment of choice. From this perspective, Coca-Cola's advertising is not primarily competing for attention during the commercial. It is competing for a place inside consumers' memory long after the commercial has ended. And if that interpretation is correct, then the company's greatest marketing achievement is not convincing people that Coca-Cola is a good soft drink. It is making millions of ordinary moments throughout everyday life quietly point back to the same familiar brand. Seen from this perspective, Coca-Cola has never been choosing between advertising the product and advertising emotion. It has been solving a different business problem. A soft drink can only be consumed one bottle at a time. But the number of situations in which people might think about that bottle can continue expanding for decades. That is why the campaigns we have examined share the same underlying direction despite looking different on the surface. Open happiness encouraged people to associate Coca-Cola with simple pleasures. Share a Coke transformed an ordinary package into a social interaction. Taste the feeling brought the beverage back into focus without separating it from everyday experiences. Real Magic continued connecting the brand to moments of shared participation. Each campaign added another layer to the same network of associations. None of them depended on proving that Coca-Cola had suddenly become a better soft drink. Instead, they continually increased the number of moments in which the brand felt naturally relevant. This also explains why emotional branding can create economic value that product information alone often cannot. Product information has limits. Once consumers understand what Coca-Cola is, repeating the same functional message produces diminishing returns. Emotional associations work differently. Every additional connection between the brand and a meaningful life situation creates another opportunity for Coca-Cola to enter a future buying decision. That does not replace distribution. It does not replace product quality. It does not replace pricing. Those fundamentals remain essential. The Coca-Cola Company continues to invest heavily in expanding its beverage portfolio, strengthening its global system of bottling partners, and maintaining one of the world's largest distribution networks. But physical availability and mental availability reinforce one another. A product that is easy to buy becomes even more valuable when it is also easy to remember. A brand that is easy to remember becomes even more powerful when it is available almost everywhere consumers expect to find it. That combination helps explain why Coca-Cola has remained one of the world's most valuable consumer brands across generations despite changing media platforms, changing consumer habits, and an increasingly competitive beverage market. The most revealing part of the story is not that Coca-Cola creates emotional advertisements. Many companies do that. The difference is that Coca-Cola has spent decades building emotional associations with remarkable consistency until those associations became part of the brand itself. Its campaigns, packaging, sponsorships, retail presence, and visual identity all reinforce the same mental connections instead of competing with one another. That changes the way we should interpret what the company is actually selling. The bottle is the product that leaves the factory. The meaning attached to that bottle is what travels through culture. And that meaning influences whether the brand is remembered when an ordinary buying moment arrives. So the real competitive advantage is not simply producing a drink that millions of people enjoy. It is ensuring that birthdays, family meals, football matches, holiday celebrations, road trips, and countless everyday moments quietly remind people of the same familiar red label. That is why Coca-Cola has spent so much time talking about happiness instead of talking about soft drinks. Because the strongest brands are not built only by changing what customers buy. They are built by shaping what customers remember before they buy.